Today we have Cairo George, professional boxer, also known as the Waikato Warrior. So yeah, Cairo, could you just give us an introduction about yourself, please?
Yep. So, my name's Cairo George. I was born and raised in a small town, Ngaruahia, just out of Hamilton. It's a small neighbourhood that sort of everyone knows everyone, and my family and that all are from the same area as well. And more recently, I've been residing in Hamilton for the last how many years. So, born and raised in the Waikato anyway, and as for boxing, I boxed as an amateur growing up, and then 2012 I turned professional. Um, I've won New Zealand titles in three different weight divisions, and I've also won Pacific and Asia Pacific titles as well. So it's been, the whole boxing thing. I turned pro really with the goal in mind to just try and win a New Zealand title, and then things started flowing, and it ended up kind of taking on a life of its own.
I understand you started boxing at a really young age. Could you give us to let us know, like how was it you started to get into it, or who was the one who influenced you to get into boxing?
So I basically come from a boxing family. My father boxed, my older brother boxed, and so it's something that's kind of just been passed down through generations. Um, so boxing was one of those things that was just always around while I was growing up. I spent a lot of my childhood years following around the amateur boxing circuit with my older brother, and he was the biggest inspiration for me. I just always sort of wanted to be like my brother, and I looked at my brother as a hero, and I just wanted to be like my brother and be tough like him, because I'd always looked at him as a real big tough guy, you know.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Cairo's brother.
Yeah. So that was my biggest inspiration behind getting into boxing, and the biggest push behind it all was my dad. My dad, he's a real supportive guy. It didn't matter what I was going to be doing, he was going to get behind it 100%. It just happened to be boxing, and it's something that he's real into, and so yeah, he coached me right through my whole lifetime.
So, with getting into before we get into the pro boxing part of it, I understand you actually had an accident, a big accident, before your professional debut. Could you tell us more about it?
Basically, for us growing up, my brother, my dad, we were into bikes and boxing. That was the things that we were into. Growing up, we always had motorbikes, and we were always boxing. That was the two things that we sort of did. 2009, I had this brand new Buell. It was a pretty powerful bike, and I ended up in this real bad accident that put me into hospital for 2 weeks. I was pretty banged up. I had surgery, some screws put into my ankle, and I also had a small fracture to my spine. And that was more or less the time that I decided to give pro boxing a go and get back into boxing, because the time leading up to that, I'd just been partying and drinking and going around, and I wasn't living a good lifestyle really. And when that happened to me, when a life-threatening thing like that happened to me, that was what sort of woke me up and made me realize, is my life really what I want it to be, and am I really doing the things that I want to be doing? And up the hospital, I was told by one of the doctors that I may not walk again because of damage to my spine. And so, I was never religious or anything. And when I was told that news, it's a scary thing, because walking something that you've been able to do, it's an ability that you've had your entire life, and when someone tells you that you might not have that ability anymore, it's a pretty scary thing. So I turned to God, and I just started praying, in my alone time up to hospital. I just started saying, if you give me an opportunity here and allow me to recover from this, I'm gonna just turn my life around and give my life a real good go. And after that, I recovered, and I kept my promise. I went and talked to my dad and said, man, I want to get back into boxing again. And we had a conversation, and I wasn't really interested in going back into the amateur boxing scene. Back then, I think the scoring criteria has changed now. I think they have changed it up. But back then, it was all about scoring points. You know, you go and throw 100 straight punches, and you're going to score a ton of points and win these fights. And there wasn't a really much opportunity for guys with a little bit of finesse and moving around and trying to set up big shots. It was more built for the guys that had kind of long arms and could score 100 punches on you. So I talked to my dad about it at the time, and I just said, look, I want to get back into boxing, but I want to go pro. And because I just felt like stylistically I was built for that game more than I was for the amateurs. And yeah, he agreed, and he was right behind it. So yeah, my dad's been the biggest part of my boxing career and even my whole life.
Shout out to Cairo's dad as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely as well. Like going into professional boxing, you kind of had to earn a living as well. So moving away from the amateur, it was a good experience, but it's not something that you really kind of gravitated towards, like the amateur style of fighting and scoring and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
because I had a crap amateur record. I mean, if it was something where I was at a level where I could be like Commonwealth Games sort of material, but I was never at that level as an amateur. I think I would have lost well over half of the fights that I had. So I just wasn't built for that game, and so I turned professional, and I seem to be built for this one.
The other difference as well is like the number of rounds and the time in the rounds as well. Like with amateur, it's only 3 short rounds, or
Yeah.
you kind of go 100 all the way.
Yeah.
But like with pro boxing, you can't really do that, or you just tire yourself out.
Yeah,
too
man.
early.
It's the hurt business in the pros, man. Like some of those seasoned pro guys, when they have an amateur guy change over, and the amateur guy might come out and look good straight away, and sometimes that seasoned pro guy might be just letting you wear yourself out a little bit to catch you with a big shot and flatten you. So I've seen amateur guys change over and just not make that stylistic change, slow the fight down and look for better shots rather than going out there and trying to score all these points.
Controlling the pace as well. I think that's a big one. And your conditioning as well. So yeah, the other one I want to ask about is at a certain point, you and your dad, you actually decided to approach Lolo Haimuli and started training over in Balmoral Liga. How was that experience?
Yeah, that was awesome. The guys up there, man, I was training with some killers. Like growing up in the gyms and stuff, my dad used to take me around for sparring a lot, like to Lolo's gym for sparring. So we kind of had a little bit of a relationship with Lolo already. I'd met Lolo in my young amateur days, just at tournaments and stuff. And so he was our go-to guy. My dad and I just sort of decided that we're going to add another flavour to our sort of team. And it also gave my dad to a chance to step back and play more of a management role, because he was sort of just doing everything, and it was getting a bit much. So that's when we decided to bring Lolo on to be my head coach. My dad would still help me out with the coaching and stuff, but he could focus more on the management side and getting opponents ready and setting up these events and stuff. So that was the reasoning for the decision. And yeah, the experience here was awesome, man. Like I'd gone from being in a gym really where I was the top guy, and then changing over to this gym where I was nowhere near it. And because the level was so high at the gym that I moved over to, at Lolo's gym at that time, man, we had everyone, man, the gym was just full of straight killers. And so when the level's so high at the gym, you can't help but level up to that level. So I took a lot from the experience changing over, and Lolo's got such a good mind for this game. He's like an encyclopedia when it comes to this fight game, man. So big respect to him. I mean, he's become more like family for me now. The years that I've been training with him, like he lives in Auckland, I live in Hamilton, so I go stay with him, I go stay with his family. So yeah, our relationship now has grown a lot further than coach and fighter. I look at him as almost like a second father, man. Yeah.
When you spend that amount of time with somebody, of like a fatherly figure.
Yeah, definitely, man.
It's more than just a coach.
Yeah, exactly. Like even his young kids, like I feel like I've watched those boys grow up. Like when I started training with Lolo, they were really young kids, and now they're at like high school and stuff. So I've watched his kids grow up. So yeah, man, there's definitely a lot deeper relationship there than boxer and coach.
Hey you, don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video. That connection, that that more the brotherly or fatherly connection in this case, that's a big one. And talking about kids, bro. So how was it for you, like being a professional boxer and having kids? How has that changed your life?
Yeah, it was a big change actually, because then you no longer are only worrying about yourself. You know, you've got to set an example for these young kids that are always got their eye on you. You know, I know that my kids will be soaking up whatever's around them. So I just feel like, I don't know, there's no real proper guide to parenting. Everyone's going to have their own thoughts and stuff behind it. But I feel like if you lead by the best example you can, and just have the environment the right way, you know, your kids are going to pick things up along the way. And you just hope that they're going to be the best people, you know, be good people anyway, good manners and things like that.
A good question is, do you think either one of your kids are going to pick up boxing? And if they were, to gravitate towards boxing, would you encourage them, or what's your input on that?
Yeah, both of them, I really want them to do it for the, the self-defense side of things, and even just the mental side of things. I mean, everyone has bad days, like even here at our gym that I got here, probably only 10-15% of the guys actually compete.
HitFitness HQ in Hamilton. So for those of you who are watching from Hamilton, if you want to learn boxing, you want to train, or just want to get fit, come here.
Yep.
Contact Cairo, come here. Okay, back to it, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, like even a lot of our members here, they just come for a fitness and just to hit something. You know, everyone has a bad day, with whatever it is. And, if you just come here and punch some bags and do some, fight simulation drills and stuff, you just end up just being a lot more relaxed when you go home. I've had so many kids that I train here, and their parents tell me, man, my kids, they never fight at home anymore because they have an outlet. You know, when everyone builds up a little bit of tension, you have those days where you're a bit tense and you just want to punch something. So it's a good place to come and have that release. So yeah, going back to that, I would definitely encourage my kids to do it for that side of things. As for competing, I wouldn't really encourage them to compete unless they're 100% committed, because if you're not 100% committed, then you're just going to get beat up by a kid that is. I mean, this game is all about commitment and hard work. If you're not prepared to put that in, there's someone else out there that is putting that work in and they are committed. So yeah, that's where I'd talk to my kids. I wouldn't scare them off it, but I would just have that conversation with them and just say, look, if you want to do this, you have to be all in, because otherwise you're going to get beat up from some other kid that is all in. So that's where my thought is with that. At the moment, they both come down and muck around a little bit. It's more of just sort of getting them out of the house and getting them out of mum's hair. But my little one probably enjoys rugby a little bit more than boxing.
I think that's good as well. You kind of let them grow up in that environment, and they kind of, they might, or higher chances of gravitating towards boxing, compared to other stuff. But I understand your boys are quite into rugby as well.
Yeah,
he
my
seems to
young
be
one
doing
loves
pretty
it.
well.
Yeah, no, he loves it. And even that, like, boxing teaches you manners. It teaches you, to be dedicated. I've learned so much from boxing, like even with just life in general. A lot of the things I've learned through boxing, I learned to be patient. I learned all these good tools that I use in life. I really learned it through boxing. Just the things I learn in boxing, you can implement them in your everyday life.
Better yourself as a person, eh? Like that's the other one as well. Like I see a lot of fighters, MMA fighters, boxers, and like they have all the tools they need to like put you out, put you to sleep or whatever. But these are some of the most humble and the most friendliest people you would ever meet. And that's so surprising that people don't realize that. People think that just because you're a fighter, you're just gonna be a violent person. Or I mean, they are, but we're not saying that everybody is.
Yeah, there's a time and place for it, eh?
Yeah, that's it. And like with looking at a lot of kids these days, teenagers and stuff growing up, I feel like they don't have that proper like structure or discipline, and so like people tend to do like stupid shit outside, get into trouble, get into fights, and like the difference there is they get that adrenaline, but And then like also like getting into fights, like having your friends around, having that backup, like people to help you.
Yeah.
But when you have to understand that, when you learn boxing or when you learn MMA and stuff like that, when you get into the ring, it's just yourself.
Yeah.
So that whole mindset kind of change, and you start to, really respect other people, bro. And that was a big one.
Yeah, no, I agree to that 100%. Like, I feel like boxing humbles you. Like, that's why you see so many fighters, like MMA fighters or MMA, just fighting in general. I feel like that humbles you because if you're not a humble person, you're soon going to get humbled out there. You know what I mean? I get humbled all the time here in the gym. So, no, that's why I feel like, you don't need to prove anything. You get humbled in here all the time. And yeah, I feel like that's why you'd see so many fighters that are humble guys, because you learn that through fighting or even just the training aspect of it. So yeah, no, definitely.
Tell us a little bit more about your gym, bro. So you've set up this gym here. When do you start this gym, and how has it been so far?
Yeah, this was awesome. The best decision of my life, really. Before I had this gym, I was a personal trainer at Les Mills for 7 years. So I was there for a long time. But I was quite restricted on what I could do there. Like you couldn't have huge groups of people, and their boxing setup really wasn't the best. And so, 3 years ago, 2017, we set this gym up here, and I've just started coaching, and it kind of works well for me with boxing professionally and then boxing coaching, also my job. So basically boxing's taken over my whole life and my household as well. So that was the best decision I got. I feel real blessed to just be in a position that I'm in. Like boxing's gone real well for me. I have this awesome gym, and the team that I have here are amazing members and stuff. So I just feel real blessed to be in a position. I got awesome guys down here at the gym, so it's real uplifting when you can just come down and just be around so many good people.
And how do you find that change? Like from fighting to being a fighter, and then to being a coach, and just doing it both. How's
Yeah,
that for you?
that's a tough one to gauge because a coaching role is so selfless. You have to put all of your energy and thoughts into someone else as a coach. But then when you're a fighter, it's the complete opposite. You have to be quite selfish because you're the one that's going to be going out there and competing. You've got to really worry about yourself then. So yeah, they're two completely different roles. So I've sort of learnt how to adjust and be what I need to be in certain times. Like when I'm training up for myself and getting ready to fight, I need to be focused on myself a lot more. And be selfish with certain things and my energy and my time and what I'm investing my energy and time into. When I'm getting ready to fight, I need to invest that time and energy into myself. And then when I'm coaching guys and getting them ready for competitions, that's my time to be selfless, and then I've got to put my energy and focus into somebody else. So that's the main differences with the two things, but I've sort of learned how to juggle the two things as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. On that topic, I've heard Eugene was. I've watched some of his interviews, and he said that what's interesting was he was actually pursuing. He wanted to still continue fighting, and when he set up his own gym and when it started to get busy, he was too busy that he could not, compete himself. So that was
Yep.
But I think like on the level of like here, it's more towards amateur boxers and not really. Do you have any professional boxers here other than
I've had
yourself?
some. No, I've had about 3 or 4 pro guys that I've coached as well. Josh Nika, so David Nika's brother, he had a pro fight under us. And we had a couple other guys that they weren't real big names, but we had a couple other pro guys as well. But yeah, mainly amateurs. But yeah, I fully understand where Eugene's coming from because I find that a little bit myself. It just goes back to that whole juggling, being selfish with your time and being selfless with your time. And for him, I know that it'll be a lot bigger scale of because he's got so many guys. I don't have a real big fight team. I probably, like I was saying, probably 15% of the gym here compete and fight, and the other 80 to 85% guys, they're just here to
train and stay
train
fit
and
and be healthy.
and use the boxing as a fitness tool and a bit of even mental health tool.
Definitely. I think, yeah, talking about mental health as well, like boxing and training and having that discipline, it really helps with strengthening the mind as well. It's, it's actually a lot better, a lot of it's actually a big tool, to help people who are struggling as
Yeah,
well.
100%. Like for me, I find it like therapy. I mean, like when I've had injuries, and I know that you're coming off an injury as well. I sit home and I'm going crazy. Like even when we had like the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown, man, I'm just sitting at home and it's just driving me nuts. Like so, just getting into the gym and just having a mean session, doing some drills and hitting the bags and stuff. It's like therapy, eh? Like you
It's
have
an
that,
outlet.
yeah, you have a release, you outlet, and you go home and you're relaxed and you can just chill. You don't have all that tension built up because you've had a chance to release it somewhere. So I definitely believe that whatever it is, martial arts, whether it's MMA, boxing, kickboxing, it's so good for your mental health. Yeah.
Hey you, don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video. I want to ask you about the last fight that you had in Australia. We actually tried to look for some videos and stuff to see it online, but I couldn't really find anything. How did that fight go? What happened?
Yeah, it was a tight fight, and I was cut in the very first round from an elbow. There's no elbows in boxing, but I was cut by one. And then as the sort of fight went on, we had a number of head clashes. So I had both of my eyes cut open, and the doctor ended up jumping in and just calling the fight off. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed about that. Like it was a world title fight, WBU. It's not one of the major sanctioning bodies, but I mean some big names have held that title. Ricky Hatton held this title for a number of years, exact same weight division as well, and he went on to fight in Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. George Foreman held the heavyweight version of this title, so it wasn't one of the major players like the IBF, WBC, WBO. It wasn't one of those big major players, but it was kind of like the next one down, and it would sort of set you up for bigger things. But yeah, it was a world WBU title, and I felt almost a bit ripped off because my world title shot was stopped by cuts that were caused by head clashes and stuff that was just happening in the fight. The guy wasn't dirty at all. It was just things that were playing out during the fight. The guy Jamie, just the style, styles make fights. And just the way that we were fighting that night, we were both coming in with shots and getting bumped on.
Pretty aggressive, eh?
Yeah. So it was just the way that the fight was playing out. The fight ended up being quite close. It went to a technical decision because when a fight stopped on cuts caused by illegal fouls, they would call it, they'll just go to the scorecards at the time of the stoppage. And I always knew I fought in his hometown. We went to Toowoomba, Australia. He was from there. It was his promoter, his event. So I always knew that going in, I was going to be up against it if it was to go to the judges. And that's what happened. But after the fight, the WBU contacted me and said that because of the result of the fight, that they're going to put me as a mandatory challenger. And so we requested a rematch straight away. Jamie Hilt, the guy that I fought for the title, actually has decided to retire since then. So he's
just vacated
yeah,
title.
he's vacated title.
But not just vacate, he's retired.
Yeah, so he's completely retired. So he's jumped out and he's had enough of fighting. And so I was set to fight a younger guy, Waylon Law from Australia, for that title because he was the next best guy that we could get for that title. And
he was so basically he was number 2 in the rankings.
Yeah.
So you being the first the contender.
Yeah. And then so the next guy that we could get that was going to qualify was a guy Waylon Law, and he was also from Australia. And we were set to put that on here at home. The event was all set up. We had the undercards and stuff all lined up. And then COVID-19
COVID-19 hit us all.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hit us all bad. I was gutted about that. I mean, like, this travel restrictions and stuff, it's really holding a lot of guys up at the moment.
Yeah, I think coming from, trying to get back from that loss and trying to jump back into it, and, man, that I could only imagine, what it must have felt like for you, and you were pretty into it. You guys actually requested to get straight into it, like
Yeah.
right after that. So
Yeah. We as soon as I think we was a week hadn't even passed when the fight had, not even a week had passed, and we approached them for an immediate rematch. As soon as we got word from the WBU that we were mandatory, we approached them straight away for an immediate rematch, and to have it here in Hamilton. And when that got turned down, we ended up getting a fight over the line with Waylon Law. And that would have been mean. That would have been so cool. There's a fight on YouTube that you could look up of Waylon Law. If you search in his name, he had like a fight of the year in Australia, back and forth action with a guy. I can't even think of the guy's name, but I'm sure it'll be the first fight that pops up if anyone wants to search it up. So yeah, he's a badass, man. That would have been an awesome fight here in Hamilton. And yeah, it's just a bit disappointed that that one there now doesn't go ahead either. So kind of just sitting and waiting for what's next right now.
I think really what happens now, it's like beyond our control. Like, what the governments decide to do on a world level, like how the whole COVID situation is coming about. It's really hard to say. We don't really know. And like I think it was on the news just a couple of days ago. New Zealand's at 100 days free of like community transmission.
Yeah.
So I mean, well, it's like when they start to open up the borders, there's a lot of other risks that come into play as well. So it's quite hard to really plan from here, eh?
Yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna have to sort of look at options and but yeah, we can't really tell what's going to happen. I don't think any travel restrictions are going to open up anytime soon. Pretty much the rest of the world still has this thing pretty bad, so it just makes us feel quite blessed to be from New Zealand, I suppose. Yeah.
Would you be open? Would you be able to, if they were to hold a fight in Australia or somewhere else? Could you get into that, or like how the boys in the UFC have been doing it? Traveling out and fighting, and then unfortunately, when you come back, you have to have that 2 weeks quarantine. But would that be something on your plans?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Possibly?
I'd be open to that. Yeah, I don't know how the UFC are getting sort of past that because I know that just recently
Special connections.
Yeah. I know recently a couple of New Zealand boxers were trying to get on the undercard of Jeff Horn versus Tim Tszyu. And they were going to just try and go over their fight, and they didn't mind quarantine on return, but Australia wouldn't let them in. So, yeah, the UFC must have a big pull with governments, man, because some of these guys couldn't get past it.
They have some friends in pretty high places, obviously. Do you have any advice, bro, for people watching?
Yeah, just I always, because I quite often go and talk to young kids. I do quite regularly go to do school visits and talk to youth guys, because I feel like kids that sort of might come from a similar background as me. I'm from a small ghetto neighborhood, and I'm quite blessed. Like, I've been blessed with boxing. I've been blessed to have this awesome gym and have such awesome people here with me. And I think I've just been blessed to be around the right people at the right times, and had positive people around me to help keep me going. And so, yeah, I'm quite into going and talking to the young guys and stuff, because if they can see a guy like me that comes from a similar background to them, because the whole, like, being brought up in a small ghetto neighborhood and gang affiliated things going on, this is probably the majority when it comes to my people, like Māori people. A lot of the kids growing up have that sort of gang affiliation with the families and stuff, and that's more or less the background that I come from. And so if I can sort of help the thought pattern of a kid that's coming through, young, especially my own people, the Māori people here, if I can change the thought pattern of what they are sort of thinking, I'm real keen to push on that. So just trying to get the right people around you is sort of my advice for them. Things aren't going to be easy. You're going to have to face your challenges, but that's just part of life. And Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, I understand you actually are quite a big influence in the community, or the Marae as they call it. You guys hold like events and talks and stuff like that. So you're heavily involved with that. Like, what are the kind of stuff that they do, and maybe you can encourage some of the people to come about.
Yeah, well, so I basically just tell my story, like I was saying, the young kids that might come from a similar background to me, like I grew up amongst a family with a lot of gang affiliation and from a little ghetto neighborhood and stuff. So like when I go speak to these kids, they might, especially the young Māori ones, if they come from a similar background, which like I say is the majority of the Māori kids. It might just help like inspire them and think, oh man, this guy here was like me, and look at what he's doing now. So I just try and be a good role model and just tell them my story and say, look, I was like you guys, and I sort of am doing all right now. And so I don't take my position for granted. I feel like I've been blessed with something, and I don't take that for granted. So my way of giving back and just showing my appreciation for what I've been blessed with is to just try and talk to kids and things, and I might be able to change the thought pattern of what some other kid is going through and what they're thinking of, might be getting into, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I think that about wraps up our session for today. Really appreciate your time for coming and having a chat with us, and yeah, hopefully we're looking forward to your WBU fight. Hopefully when that happens, when the restrictions get lifted, and yeah, just all the best in your future plans, the plans with the gym, and all the stuff that you're doing on the side as well. And yeah, hopefully we'll have another one when you get towards being the world champion, bro.
Yep.
And we look forward to that. Thank you again,
Awesome.
Cairo.
Thank you, my bro.
All right. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you on the next one.